the resident storyteller from the World Storytelling Cafe Marrakesh, and I have with me my story sister, Maria Gillen, and Jim Brule from New York. And we would love to extend our thanks to Sheehan's Storytelling Cottage and Gary Writers Museum and World Storytelling Cafe for this beautiful project we have worked for, like from last September, and this story bridges between Morocco, Ireland, and New York now.
Okay.
So please welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe, all the people who are watching this live stream, and I welcome my story sister Maria with us here, and we've had a beautiful 3 days and 3 nights in my small village Okhanivan in Ancus province, Lella Takrukuz, with Jim Brule. So we share stories, we sing songs in different languages, and we'd love to do more and more in the future. So here's what is going to happen. We are going to have some stories and to have some discussions, and I'm going to be first and telling the story. And my first master is Mr. Taffy Thomas from England. Grossmere have told me once one beautiful thing, and he said to me, Omar, stories have legs because they travel the world. And I found this when I was working here for quite a long time now. And one day I've told a story, the story that I'm going to share with you today. And one of the two girls from England told me the same story, but different, like words and different, like characters and the names and the places. And the story that they told me, it's like a Jewish story, and they said it's Gamzu Litova. And the Gamzu Litova means it's all good. And a couple from United States, I have like months ago now, they tell me the same story that has like a Chinese origins. But the story that I'm going to share with you is a Moroccan story. It has an Islamic background, and I hope you like that story because it touched me in deep heart because I love that story. As we say, we start the story as like this. Once upon a long time ago, when the world was still young, there lived a man. And this man, one of the richest men in this world, he is the king, he is the sultan. And this man has everything that you can imagine in this world. Wealthy, health, strong, famous, handsome, everything, beautiful woman. Then he has one issue in his life. He has his vizier, his minister, he is his best friend at the same time. And he always and all the time face some problems and some issues with his best friend, because whatever you say to that man, whatever you say to him, this man, this vizier, all the time remarked and said in one phrase, I think what happened is good. No, we don't have a problem, we don't have an issue in the land. And say, okay, the kingdom is good, but I think what happened is good. Gamzoli Tufa. One day the king went to his garden and he had a dagger in his right hand and he tried to cut a bamboo. He was very happy because he's happy. He's having a beautiful morning in his garden and he see that bamboo and he say, I need to cut this bamboo. So he sat down like this. I would sit and he would say, Bismillah, Bismillah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It was like this and he said, 1, 2, 3, and he got his finger off and he was shouting and shouting, my finger off, I got my finger off, I am the 9 fingers king right now. And then he invited all the doctors around the globe and they came to him and said, Your Highness, Your Majesty, what happened to you? I got my finger off, look at me. And then he had a bandage around his finger and he cut him down a little bit. Then it was an evening, and he was sitting in his throne, and he was very upset, and he's suffering. He's in deep sufferance. And his best friend, his vizier, came, sitting next to him. He said, Your Highness, what happened to you this morning? I said, I cut my finger off. I cut my finger off. All the kids right now like laugh at me, and they don't have look at the 9 fingers now. And they say to him, what do you think about what happened to me this morning? Sorry. His best friend said, Gamsoli Tuha, it's good. The king was very upset and like, what? It's good? I cut my finger off and I said, you said that it's good? You know, I put you in the jail till to rot. And he put him in the jail for a long time. One day the king has a problem in his land and he was alone, his best friend is not here, and he started to have a lot of problem in the land, in his kingdom. And back in the time, when the sultans have such situations like this, they go to hand. This is the only thing they have to chill and to be relaxed. He rides his horse and he was into the thick forest. 3 days and 3 nights. And he's supposed to have something to eat, to hand something, a gazelle, whatever. 4th day, he was very starving, he was very thirsty, and he would say, I need to eat something, I need to have something, I'm very thirsty, I'm very hungry. Then he saw a gazelle. He get closer, and more closer to her. Like this, very focused and concentrated, and said to himself, it's time to have some food. You know what? When we are very hungry, we became blind. We don't see anything clearly. The Sultan crossed from one land to another land. Big mistake. Then big soldiers waiting for him and said to him, hey, I'm fingers man. No, I am the king, even though I have just 9 fingers, but I'm still the king and I have the right to go anywhere I want in this world. They say to him, no, you don't have the right to go anywhere you want in this world. This is our place, this is our priority, and guess what? We are bringing you as a sacrifice to our priest. They tied him like this and they bring him to the priest, and he was the priest sitting in our place. A very, very wise man with a big hair, white hair, and ginger beard. Yeah, and he was sitting in his place like this, and he was very happy because he saw a man and he said, yes, we're gonna have some bliss tonight because we have a sacrifice to our Lord, to our gods. Yeah, very happy and exciting. Then the kings, they sit him in a place very bad, and he was very sad. He's about to be, yeah, you know what this means, out of his head. Then all the people gathered in this place, and they have a very spiritual thing. It came a man with a strange instrument like this, and he was saying, and a lot of people gathered, and a lot of women, and he was stopped drumming, and let's use this. Very happy and excited, and they have good time because someone is going to be sacrificed to the Lord. Then there's a big man came with a big sword. And he gets closer, more closer to the gang. Gang stare at him like this, and he would say, this is the end. The man looked at the priest, and the priest said to him, finish. The man gets closer, and the priest said, 1, 2, 3, stop! And he would stop, and he threw that sword in the ground and would say, why will you stop? And he was very big man. Why will we stop? This is what we do. If you have a stranger in our land, we take his head off, and that's it. And we give him as a sacrifice to our Lord, to our God. Oh, forgive us, God, for this mistake. The priest stand up and you go directly to the king. You look at him and say, you, and you like point the finger to the soldiers and say, come here, look, this is him. And you have a look at him, and you will say, he's like, what should you do with him? I said, depressed, don't you notice something? What happened? It's the finger. And the priest said, we cannot sacrifice someone who is next to our Lord, to our God. How dare you know? And the king, the first thing he did, Namzuri Tuva. It's good. It's good. And he was very happy and excited. And then he gave him his horse. He gave him food and water and all the color of food that you can find and you can imagine in your mind. And he gave him two big soldiers and he bring him back to his palace safely. The king, the first thing he did, he went to his best friend in the jail and he opened the door and said, my best friend, I'm really sorry, I don't have the face to face to talk to you because I put you in this bad situation for this long time. And he said to him, no, it's good. It's all good. Comes only too well. And I said, how come? Because I put you in the jail, no water, no food, and the bad conditions. No, it's completely bad conditions. I said to him, no, I might have some bad nights, bad days, but generally speaking, it's good. And I said to him, I need to tell you a story. I need to tell him that story. And I said to him, what do you think about my story? And the minister said as well, again, I think your story is good. What happened to you is really good. And this, the king can't imagine what this man said every time, it's good, it's good. Gamzoli tuva, gamzoli tuva, gamzoli tuva. And I say to him, please tell me the story behind this. It's all good all the time. Then I say to him, here's the thing. You cut your finger off and you put me into jail. And you go by yourself to the fake forest. And those people catches you and bring you to the press and you would like 90% you get sacrificed to the Lord and you get escaped because you've missed a finger. Believe that if you didn't put me in the jail, I would normally come with you. And those people would say, like, let you go, but for me, I would be a sacrifice to the Lord to be God, and just you would just take my head off, and that's it. Finish all my life.
Yeah.
And the king smiled and had him a huge hug and say, my best friend Gamzoli Tuva, I thank you very much. And from then on, he gave him his beautiful girl to marry. He was like more than a minister for the rest of his life. And you would live forever for the rest of their life. And this is the end of the story of the king and his prime minister. And I love that story because it has a lot of meaning. Thank you so much for this.
So when Omar told this story in Ireland, the phrase is, it's all good, So we say it a lot in our everyday language, it's all good. And that story is a story of it's all good. So the people loved this and felt that the story was worth, And is there any questions from our audience?
I don't have any questions, but my English is not very good. But I try to explain something. Omar is talking about something. Can we thinking it's really bad, or can stop our But in reality, this thing can benefit me or can save me. From another thing can get more than the first.
Yes. So we say that's a wisdom. you know. So for the people that are listening in from Kerry and beyond, from the whole of the storytelling world, it was an observation was made that there is wisdoms in this story, and you can use it in your own life, and it can be a benefit. And that's one of the really lovely things about stories. Yeah.
I have a story
Yeah.
that has to do with that.
Oh, then we're going to go to that story.
And, you know, you had a little bit of a Jewish story in yours, and mine is a Muslim story. So it's a nice trade.
Exchange.
Yes. And I learned this story from a woman who said came from a hadith. Now, I know a lot about hadith, and I have friends who are imams, and they said there's no such hadith about this. So I went back to her and I said, no, really, where did you get this story? And she said, it was a cab driver in New York. So anyway, and this is a story about a very wealthy man, again, except he was a camel driver. And he had a huge herd of camels. And he was a merchant, right? He would use the camels to carry his goods from one place to another and sell them. And camels, you know, are not friendly. You know, they get angry sometimes. But he had one camel that was his. Nobody had noticed, but the owner of the grove was just on the other side of the fence. And he saw the camel starting to eat his pomegranates. And he reached out and picked a rock and he threw it at the camel to drive it away. But it hit the camel right between the eyes, and the camel fell over dead. And Ahmed, this was his camel. This was almost his friend. He was furious. He picked up the same stone and he threw it back. And what do you think? It hit the man right between the eyes, and he fell over dead. And now they noticed that the sons of the orchard owner were right behind, and they saw their father get killed. And they ran out and they grabbed Ahmed and they started to beat him. They were so angry, you know. And Ahmed said, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kill your father. He killed my camel. I was just doing the right. And they said, we're going to kill you because you killed our father. And Ahmed said, isn't it enough that one person has died and a camel has died? I'll pay you the blood price instead of you taking my life. And they said no, and they started to beat him. Well, of course, he had men working with him, and they came in, and this big fight starts to happen. Fortunately, the Sultan's guards were coming down the road, and they saw this huge fight. They pulled them apart. That's what's going on, and then they explained. And the eldest son wouldn't give up his demand for Ahmed's life, and Ahmed kept offering the blood price. So they said, we'll take him to the Sultan, and the Sultan will decide what to do. They took him to the Sultan. The Sultan sat on his dais, and into the courtyard they were, and they explained the story. And Ahmed is saying, I'll pay the blood price. I'm terribly sorry. I admit to the killing him, but I didn't mean to. And the Sultan said to the eldest son, it's your right to demand the blood price. But I think you should, it's your right to demand his life, but I think you should take the blood price. The son said, no, I insist. So he said, okay, that's your privilege. So he called out the executioner. And Ahmed put his head down on the block, that's kind of curved and stained. And he takes out his sword, and Ahmed raises his head and says, Sultan, isn't it true that a convicted man gets one last request? And the Sultan said, yes, that's our tradition. He said, well, my family doesn't know where I am. And if I don't come home, I have many loans, and they'll be called thieves because I won't have paid off the loans. So please give me 3 days. 1 day to where my family lives, 1 day to settle my accounts, and I'll come back the next day. And the Sultan laughed at him and said, do you think I'm so foolish that I would let you go for 3 days, not even look for you for 3 days? Why would you ever come back? And Ahmed said, I will. The Sultan said, no, that's not possible. Then a man from the crowd stepped forward and said, I believe Ahmed. I believe him so much that I will offer myself as a hostage. And if he doesn't come back, you can have my head instead. Well, the eldest son said, no, I want Ahmed's head. The Sultan said, do you know what you're offering? Do you know that he has no reason to come back? The man said, I believe him. And the Sultan said, okay, put this to the test. And he took him in and threw him in jail. And they gave Ahmed the fastest horse they had, and he rode off to his family. 1 day, 3 days, no Ahmed. The brother said, I want his head now. The Sultan said, let's wait till morning. And morning came, and there's no Ahmed. And they take the man out, and they put his head on the block, and the executioner comes out. He looks up at the executioner, and he says, please make this swift. The executioner said, I will. You've given it, I'll make it swift. And as he raises his sword, somebody calls out from the walls and said, I see dust. And so I said, wait. And sure enough, it got closer and closer. There was a man riding a horse, and they threw open the gates, and it was Ahmed. And he came back in, and he raced to the center where the executioner's block was. He threw himself down on the ground. He said, thank you, Sultan, for waiting. I'm here. You can have my head now. And they let the hostage go. They put him down, his head on the block, and the executioner drew his sword. Ahmed looked up and said, please, would you make it swift? And the executioner said, yes. And the Sultan said, wait a minute. Ahmed, I have a question for you. Why did you come back? I had no reason to come. And he said, I thought about that. But when I was with my family and I knew I was leaving them, that I wouldn't see them again, I thought, what kind of world do I want for my children? I want to live in a world in which a person's vow means something. And if I don't go back, that won't be the world they live in. And so I felt I had to come back and fulfill my vow. And the Sultan said, thank you very much. And the executioner raised his blade, and the Sultan said, wait a minute. You chose which world you wanted to live in. I will choose which world I want to live in. And I want to live in a world where mercy is a little stronger than justice. And so he said to the eldest son, come with me, you and Ahmed and I are going to share some tea.
beautiful. So lovely. Lovely. So, what did you think of that story? Did you like it? Yes, very good. Yeah, so it's amazing how one story reminds us of another story. And we see this as a gift in storytelling. Last year, when we were going for the world record, the Guinness World Record, many storytellers were thinking, I have 3 stories playing in my head. And then another storyteller would tell a story, and you would say, oh, I know the story that I would tell. And that is connection. And that is part of Project StoryBridge, that we're trying to build bridges with this. And there's all kinds of connections. So the connection that I'm exploring at the moment is the connection between the sound of Irish singing and the sound of African music, the sound of Irish dancing and the sound of African drums. And we have found over the past, since we started to research into it, we have found that there's many connections that goes back millennia and also hundreds of years between Ireland and Africa. So before I came here today, you found some lovely music. Maybe we can tell the people in the greater world storytelling cafe and the people here what you found.
Yes, there is a like when I was in Ireland. I met with one of Amazigh man who lived in Liscoy. He works in Limerick.
Yeah.
And his name is Mohammed. So Mohammed, if you
Hello, Mohammed.
thank you so much. And we are like we have a deep discussion about Irish culture, and music, and the storytelling. He said to me, you know, I have something to tell you today because you may be interested in this. And I said, okay, tell me about this. And they said, do you have some knowledge about the connection between Irish music and Amazigh in Jewish music? And I said, no, tell me. And he said to me, there is a podcaster like the Blind Boy podcast in Ireland.
Hello, Blind Boy.
Hello, Blind Boy.
We love you.
Yeah. So he sent me the link to the podcast on Spotify and they listened to it. And then he talked about a lot of things. So one of the things that he talked about, like there's a monkey found in Ireland, and he said there is two, like if we said explanations. Whether one of the Irish people came to Morocco and to bring that monkey to Ireland, or one of the Moroccan people traveled to Ireland and lived. Maybe, yeah, because when we travel, we bring our culture with
Of
us.
course. Yeah.
And then there is a specific, like, very significant 2 minutes in the podcast where there is a similarities between Ahwash music and very, very traditional Irish music with the song, the sing with women. So
Channels. So it sounds a little bit like my youngest son came home today. His friends marched with him all the way. And it's very similar to African, isn't it?
it's very similar to Amazigh music and Ahwash and we say, for example,
Yeah.
لا لا يا جديد انت تلقى لا أصيحة يا جديد انت ما تلقى لا أصيحة وانزا. For me, if you listen to a woman singing that song,
Omar is welcome in Ireland.
yes, and you can tell us maybe more about the connection between storytelling, between like because we have the trade and storytelling between Irish storytelling and Amazigh storytelling with Tahisha maybe.
Well, we had the wonderful opportunity yesterday to meet with Tahir Shaw.
Hello, Tahir Shah.
And we were talking about the ways in which culture traveled between Ireland and particularly Morocco, not just North Africa, particularly Morocco. And it was because of pirates. And pirates were raiding, particularly this one part of Ireland and coming back here. And this culture started to travel back and forth. And it's a wonderful place to explore even more.
Yeah.
We've discovered since then that there's even a genetic connection between Morocco and Ireland.
Yeah.
And there's just deep, deep connections there, which seemed very surprising at the time. But the more we read, the more we learn in the same course.
Absolutely. So I told Tahir Shah about Mankan Manga. Unfortunately, we lost him last year. And he was very interested in the Irish language and he was fluent. And he went to Africa and he found that the Irish language was spoken in Africa, not a dialect, not something a little bit different, but Gaeilge, the Irish language. So that was absolutely amazing. And we wonder, how did those things happen? Because you must remember that the Atlantic Ocean stretches between us. And this would have been thousands of miles in tiny boats, hundreds of years ago. So there's amazing story pictures in that alone, you know, so yeah.
But the route then between Morocco and Ireland was not interrupted by any other countries or cultures because it was going through the ocean. And so when other pieces started to travel through Europe, they would encounter other cultures and it changed more and more. And so by the time they reached the British Isles, they had shifted a lot because of all the other cultures they had encountered along the way. But that special connection between Ireland and Morocco was held closer because of, even though it was a long distance, there were no interruptions along.
Yeah. So I kept saying that I loved the way Jim's brain works because he goes into the research. And sitting between Jim and Tahir Shah yesterday, they were going into the logic and the facts about this connection. But the connection held true all through the centuries in our stories.
Yes.
So now might be a good time to tell one of those stories. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to stand to tell stories. I use my whole body. I'm going to put my water here. Push back this. And tell you the story of Mananon Mark Lear. So I'm going to see if you can say this word, because I find it hard to say sometimes the words of, you know, kind of Omar, like Mirhib took a long time, you know. So I'm going to say Mananon. You?
Mananon.
Mananon. Very good. Yes, you sound like Irish. Very good. So, so we start with the story. A long, long, long time ago, in the time outside time, in a different time to how we see time, because we see time in a line. But in those days, the people, they saw the time in a spiral. And it was possible when the road was curly like this to revisit a time. And we made a place, and the place was called Tir Nano. And it is said that those people still exist in Tir Nano to this very day. Well, all of the children of the gods of the world would come to Ireland, Éire, and there they would learn very important things, like how to make peace, what was philosophy like, poetry, music, things that could stop a war. And when they would ask the children to open up their books, sometimes there was daydreamers here. Do you know any daydreamers? Are you perhaps a daydreamer yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly, me too. So Mananon, well, he was a great daydreamer. And when the teacher would say, take out your philosophy book, his eyes would go like this. And he would go inside of his head, inside of his heart, and he would begin to dream. And first he dreamed of people coming over the cliffs of Ireland. There was no people yet in Ireland. And these people would be known as bag people because they collected things. And when he saw them in his head, he saw the trees being chopped down. He saw the birds going away. He saw the animals nowhere to be seen, and he would get cross. So in the middle of his class, he would jump up and he would say, get back, you bad people! And everybody in the class would start to laugh, and his cheeks would go red, and he'd say, oh no, was I dreaming again? And they would say, yes, Manannán, you were dreaming. Tell us what you saw in your head. And that is how he became the first storyteller in the whole of Ireland. And of course, there's been many storytellers since. So he thought, I have a good idea. I will go home to my father, Lear. Lear was the father of all of the gods in the Irish pantheon, almost like, you know, the gods in the Greek pantheon. And he went home and he said to his father, I have a great idea. I think I'll give up the old school. And his father said, no! For 3 days, and a huge hurricane came all the way around Ireland, and it blew in the trees, and the waves came up from the Atlantic Ocean, and they came in over the trees. And he said, oh my God, I better go back to school, or there'll be no Ireland. And that is why we have bogs in Ireland today, because Manannán would not go to school. But he still dreamed in class. He still jumped up. He still started to fight with the bad people in his mind's eye. And the teacher said, Manannán, you need to do something about this. So Manannán went to the wise man. The wise man with a big long beard, like Jim here, and the long white hair, and what looked like a jabala, but white, you know. And he found him in the middle of the forest, and he said to Finnegas, this is my problem. And Finnegas said to him, well, you need not worry, I have the solution. You are a young person. You are not yet a man. You are no longer a child. And your body needs to be exercised like a horse. So if you take the body out every day and you exercise the body, then when you come back into the class, your mind will be at rest. So he thought about it, and he thought, what would he do? And he went to the edge of Loch Foy, and he saw the silver salmon like poetry in motion. And he said, I will swim. So he jumped into the air and into the lake, and he began to swim. And he went all the way around the big lake. And finally, when he finished, he was able to sit in his class. He was able to concentrate on his work. And he said, this is working. But the next day, he could do it 15 times because he was a god. And the next day, he could do it even more. And by Friday, he could do it 150 times. And when he came out of the water, he was dizzy and his eyes were like this. And he felt as if he was almost drunk. And he said, this will not do. I will have to take myself to the Atlantic Ocean. So he went to the Atlantic Ocean. And when he went to the Atlantic Ocean, he jumped from a cliff into the water. And all of the children of the gods of the world, they clapped as they watched him like poetry in motion, swimming through the waves. But you know what the weather in Ireland is like.
Yeah.
You know what the weather in Ireland is like. It changes like that. And the sky began to get grey, and the waves, they began to get big, and the wind, it began to blow, and the children of the gods of the world started to shout, Mama! But he could not hear them because he was gone into one of his daydreams and he was swimming under the water. So the water became cold and she sent her icy fingers in to play with his bones. And he came up through the water and he saw the black sky and he saw the waves as big as mountains and he saw the troughs as deep valleys. And he began to scream, Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Glug, 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 glug. And he went under the water for the first time. And under the water, he heard a voice in his head. And the voice said, Hey, dreamer, what can you see? Hey, dreamer, what can you see? So he burst out of the water, trying to grab onto something that wasn't there to save his life. And he began to scream, I see the black sky. I see the high waves. I see the deep troughs and the white foam across the waves. Glug, glug, glug. And he went under the water for the second time. And when he was under the water for the second time, he heard the voice again. Anyone can see that, dreamer. Anyone can see that. But what can you see? What can you really see? And he began to look in the water. And the best thing I can tell everybody here and all of you at home is to pick a spot on the floor and look into that spot deeply, deeply, because that is what he did. And he stopped panicking and he became comfortable in the water. And finally, he floated to the top and he said, The whole universe is contained in one drop of water. And the sky split and the sun began to shine and the water warmed up and he began to smile and he heard the voice again. Dive down deeper, dreamer. Dive down deeper. So he jumped into the air like a salmon and went through the water like poetry in motion. And the things that he saw were amazing. He saw fish so teeny tiny that you could see through their bodies. He saw fish so big that you could build a city on their back. He saw a forest of coral of every different color in the universe and some colors that our eyes cannot yet perceive. And he saw the wall of iridescence. Iridescence. Have you ever seen a bubble and you know the bubble is invisible, yet all the colors of the world, they slide across that bubble? That is iridescence. And it was so tall, he could not see where it ended. It was so deep, he did not know where it finished. And it went on in either direction as far as the eye could see. So he swam up to it and straight through. And he landed on ground and he began to use his feet again. And he ran for the sheer joy of running. And he couldn't stop. And he saw mountains made of cheese. And he saw lakes made of milk. And he saw rivers of Ishtabaha, the water of life, whiskey. And he tasted from everything. And he was very happy. And then he saw an old horse. He was so old that he was furry. You know when a horse goes furry on his cheeks? And you and I, we might say, that horse is too old. We need to leave that horse in the field. That horse deserves its retirement. But he had the eyes of a dreamer now. So he went up to that horse and he put his hand on either side and he pulled him close and he looked into the windows to the soul, into the eyes of the horse. And do you know what he saw there? Adventures. Lots and lots of adventures. Adventures yet to come. So he ran behind the horse and it had a little silver disc and it was carved in spirals and the ancient old language of Ireland. And you could spend a lifetime looking at that piece of art. But he jumped on top of it and he got the reins of the horse in his left hand. Our left hand is our heart hand. Our heart lives here before it travels up your arm and into its place in the center of your body where it stays for the rest of your life. So that is the hand that he took the reins with. And he clicked his tongue and they went so fast that two streams of rainbow opened on either side. And they got to the wall of iridescence and they plunged through. And they came up through the choppy waters of the Atlantic Ocean until finally he was back where he started. And the children of the gods of the world were in Queen, crying because they thought their friend was dead. But when he came to the top of the waves, they began to cheer, hooray! And he shouted, it's Misha! Mannanon Marklir Diamara. I am Mannanon Marklir. I am the being of the sea. And that was only his first story. Shinne Moshke. That is my story, and I hope you liked it. Now, there's some very interesting things that I've learned about the Mannanon story. Number one is that when I heard the story, his skin was as black as burnt wood put in water, which would suggest that he came from Africa. And his eyes were blue, which is the Celtic connection. So he was like a hybrid of that. These stories are millennia old. They're really old stories. Talking to Jim, what did you find out about Mannanon?
Which of the many things are you thinking?
Yeah. So the many things that I'm thinking of is that Mannanon came from the Fomorian people.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so much.
So many connections. Yeah. So it, even though they became myth and legend, and we say the god of the sea, that they could have been travelers from Africa those thousands of years ago. There's let me get this right, I want to get this right. So His Excellency, Dr. Rexon, who is the ambassador in Ireland to the Kingdom of Morocco, he has told me about these connections as well, and he's fascinated with them. And he said that we have a monument called Newgrange in Ireland. And on Newgrange, almost like that kind of scratching, you have the symbols of Ireland, which are the spirals. In Ireland, we have 3. Here in Africa, you have 9. I've been fascinated with that since I first came. But Lepsin, he says that there is a monument here in Africa that dates to the same time, the same symbols. It's amazing. And I love the stories you can't explain.
Yes.
And I love the stories you can explain as well. So, well, I'm just wondering how much time we have left.
Just about done.
We're just about done. Well, before we finish, we have to tie all the stories together. So, Omar, we're going to say, go. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to have like a very short, like part of a song from a story, and we're gonna change it to a Moroccan because my mother.
Can I just say, Omar's mom gave me a present of this beautiful dress, you know. So my name is now Maria Gillen Belaraj of the Clan Belaraj of Morocco. And this is my brother, and his name is Omar Gillen Belaraj of the Clan Gillen in Cork, in Ireland. Thank you, Fatima, for my beautiful dress.
Okay, so just sing the song, and we're going to do it in 3 languages. I'm going to do it in Tajik, Irish, and English. Perfect. So, Fatima, Waridana.
Fatima, tackling in it.
Fatima, come back to us.
Fatima, Waridana.
Fatima, tackling in it.
Fatima, come back to us.
And to all of you, please come to the World Storytelling Cafe in January 2027 for the most amazing storytelling festival where there will be 100 tellers at least from all over the world. And we have to learn a word called Berja.
Beja!
Berja!
Perfect, and see you next time. And welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe, where we do storytelling every day from 12 to 8. And we have every Saturday at 6 p.m. a storytelling event, and we have some special guests from all over the world, international storytellers who came to the World Storytelling Cafe and shared their stories in different languages and different cultures. So pay us a visit and come and visit us in the World Storytelling Cafe. It's a beautiful venue, and you can have a lot of fun, a lot of stories, and a lot of things to learn. See you!
Bye.